This channel supports Extra Life in its efforts to raise money for the Children's Miracle Network. For more information about how to donate and join in their efforts, go to the link displayed here. Extra Life. Play games, heal kids.
What up, everybody? This is your boy Black Magus, and I'm going to answer a question I was asked a week ago by my boy Trigun. Shout outs to him. By the way, check out his podcast. I'll try to remember to put the link in the description. Him and his boy Scythe do a podcast every weekend. It's pretty dope. You guys should check that shit out. Anyway, he had posted on my Spider-Man review video about whether or not it was a Game of the Year material, and I did kind of answer that question on the Wise Guys Talk. Wise Guys Discuss Spider-Man spoilercast. You guys can check that out too. Again, I'll try to remember to put links in the description. But here's the thing. If you're gonna ask me this question, it's gonna be sort of weighted because I'm sure a lot of people feel the way that I feel about it, or are gonna have some conflicts, because there's another game that came out this year, God of War, that a lot of people pretty much book stamped as Game of the Year when it first came out. When I first played it, I pretty much felt like God of War was probably going to run away with the title of Game of the Year. I knew that Spider-Man was coming. I also knew that Red Dead 2 was coming, but I felt like the way that Sony Santa Monica put that game together, the story, the characters, the voice acting, just the world, it was like, yo, this is tough to beat. Even though I didn't totally write off those other two games, especially Red Dead, people seem to really have a liking for Rockstar games, and elevate them higher than they may or may not be, depending on what it is, because it's Rockstar. Rockstar makes solid games. In my opinion, they're not necessarily as great as people say they are, but I understand the hype behind them. That being said, Spider-Man came through and fucking blew my mind. I can't lie. I didn't expect that good of a story, and that's the thing. I wouldn't rate Spider-Man as a Game of the Year contender if it wasn't for the story. I thought the world was going to be great, being in the superhero playground. The swinging looked great. Like, all the mechanical stuff that I saw, I was hooked by that. I just didn't think that they were going to put together a compelling enough story to challenge something like God of War. But they more than exceeded that for me. They definitely created a great story. They had some great voice acting. They created their own Spider-Man universe, which was a trip, and they pulled it off with damn near perfection. That story does rival God of War, and now we have to wait and see what Red Dead's going to do story-wise. Because Rockstar tends to build pretty interesting worlds. I tended to find the first Red Dead more compelling than anything they ever did with any GTA game. So they kind of have to impress me the same way that Red Dead did, or at least exceed that in some capacity, for me to get super hyped on it. But as it stands now, we're at a 1A, 1B conversation when it comes to Game of the Year, because there's slight things that I feel like the other does better. Like, I feel like story-wise, they're almost even. I think God of War tends to get a slight bump in my mind, only because it's a more personal story, and it's a little bit more heartwarming to see the relationship building that goes in there. Mind you, there's a lot of relationship building and personal moments in Spider-Man, but I feel like God of War hit more home to that element. Gameplay, they're both fantastic. I give slight edge to Spider-Man because the swinging around that world is fucking ridiculous. They have a fast travel system that you will ignore the fuck out of, because it's like, why would I go on the subway fast travel system? Which, if you've tried it, you realize that it has a lot of depth to it too, with the different scenes that you see and the different interactions that you see Spider-Man have with people while riding the train in the fast travel, which I thought was a really neat touch. But you want to go from point A to B swinging because it's just fun, and then the interactions that you get when you run into different things like crimes and all that, it's fucking ridiculously good. They fleshed out that world so much with the gameplay. God of War, the world is fleshed out through narrative, in my opinion, more through narrative. It's not just interaction, but it's narrative. I think the narrative carries more than the interaction, because the interaction when you're walking through the world of God of War is basically battles, whereas Spider-Man, you have a lot of small touches to the world, which I think kind of bumps that a little bit up when you think about like the open playground that Spider-Man is, because you have the podcast from Jonah Jameson. You have conversations with your friend Lieutenant Watanabe. You guys actually have interesting internet interactions, like the Spider Cop thing. The side stories have depth to them story wise. It's not just, oh, I gotta go and pick off all these things. Well, as far as doing the missions, it is, but they try to add a little bit more weight, like with the birds, where they give the story about the guy who lost his wife or things like that, and other interactions for side missions. The Taskmaster thing has some depth. It's like this dude's just trying to like break you and figure you out because he's like obsessed with being able to master and dominate you. Finding out what the hell Black Cat is up to, like stuff like that. It's a little more fleshed out. There's more meaning to them. It makes you want to do those things more. Whereas God of War is more about the fun and interaction of the actual things more than it's about the story. There are some side quests that have pretty good story, but things like going after the Valkyries are just more about the challenge. So Spider-Man kind of like, to me, gets a slight edge in gameplay because of the depth of the side stuff and the lore that you get from it in the world. Graphically, they're both great. God of War, I think, is better, of course. They put a lot of effort into it, but Spider-Man's no slouch. That world looks gorgeous. But there's a little less detail when it comes to secondary characters. Like God of War, you get a lot of detail in like a lot of secondary stuff. I think a lot more. Although I will say this, the pilot swaps for enemies kind of like makes it a little close. But yeah. No, God of War definitely, if you're a graphics person, I would say that's the better looking one. So it's like these two games are like just dogging each other at the heels in different areas, and it's just like certain elements that elevate one over the other. That's why I say it's a 1A 1B competition right now. If either one for me, I would be happy. But of course, we have the outlier. We have Red Dead Redemption 2, the third probably biggest game to come out this year, or at least the third most anticipated game to come out this year. So we'll see what Rockstar does, but at the moment, to answer your question, Trigon, yes, Spider-Man is a Game of the Year contender. If it wins, you should not be shocked or disappointed, because the game is amazing. So it's like, God, at this point, if we were to do the contest, I would be happy if either God of War or Spider-Man won, because I think both studios, Insomniac Games and Santa Monica Studios, have done excellent jobs in all areas, in all aspects of the game. So yeah, definitely you could put Spider-Man up there in the running. It definitely is there. Anyway, as always, feel free to hit me up. Let me know what you think, and I'll holler at you later. This your boy Black Makers, and I'm out. Deuces.